With me today is Dr. Chanhee Lee of The Ohio State University, OARDC. Dr. Lee is an assistant professor of nutrient management, specializing in manure management and implementing proper diets to maximize manure usage, something many farmers overlook. Dr. Lee will be joining us on November 14th for Dairy Day, brought to you by Krauss Dairy and CFAES at The Ohio State University. So what are the biggest impacts that result from animal production, and how can we improve these?
So when we talk about impact, there are always positive impact and negative impact from animal production system. Positive impact, for sure, we provide good quality, good quantity of food from animal production system. But unfortunately, during the production system, the animal production provide something that can contaminate our environment. That might be the one that the people are concerned about these days. So when we talk about the impact, we have to remember there are a bunch of positive impact and negative impact. What do we need to do to improve those? This is something that not easy because those are all related. Positive impact and negative impact, those are related. That means if we increase positive impact, that may increase negative impact. If we decrease positive impact, if we decrease negative impact, that can decrease positive impact as well. So we have to consider both at the same time and be very careful to do how we improve this situation. In the short-term goal, probably we have to find a good compromise between those two. So how we need to provide food, and also we need to reduce the environmental impact. We have to find a good compromise. In the long term, we have to improve our science and understanding of animals to improve food production without affecting negative impact, which is environmental impact, negative environmental impact.
Okay. And then I guess kind of branching off of that, obviously cattle are getting a very bad rap right now as far as environmental impact, as far as, the greenhouse gas emissions and all of that. So what are some thoughts, I guess, you have on this? I mean, do you think that it's being blown way out of proportion? And, what do you think that, as producers, we can even do to kind of help combat, the public image on that?
So greenhouse gas emissions, it is true that animal production, especially beef cattle and dairy cows, they produce methane and greenhouse gases. It is true, and their contribution is significant, so which is true. But what we have to remember, recognize, is that animal production is not the major number one contributor. So that's what we need to think about first. But as I said, they are the significant contributor. So producers and researchers, we need to always try to lower gas emissions from animal production system. For example, methane, depending on the research, it varies 5% to 15% of contribution from animal production system. It varies, but we have to do something for the future to reduce the methane production from animal production system, especially ruminant. There are two sources that produce methane from animal production system. One is animal itself. Beef cattle and dairy cows, they produce methane through the burp. And they produce manure, and manure during the storage and after application to the field, manure produces methane as well. There are two sources, but major source is the animal itself through the burp. There are a lot of strategies, nutritional strategies that we can do. If we do that strategy, we can reduce the methane production by 5 to maximum probably 20%. But we still need to, a lot of other scientists are still working on to improve that impact efficiency. And recently there were 2 or 3 prototypes of feed additives have been tested in the labs in the world. And consistently, one of them decreased the methane production by 80% maximum. And it was not consistent, but consistently decreased the methane by 20% to 80%, which is good news. And if that is commercialized, producers may just feed it and reduce the methane production. In the manure side, it's not easy because there is nothing we can do much. If we need to reduce the methane or gas production, ammonia, greenhouse gases, we need to remodel the manure storage system, which costs money. And we sometimes can apply some manure additive to reduce gas emission, but that costs money as well. But the problem is people don't want to spend much money for the manure handling. So it is not an easy task. We can definitely do the nutritional strategy to reduce methane from animals. But we need to still work on to improve the strategy to reduce gas emission during the manure storage and manure after application to the field.
Yeah, I feel like the storage is something that people probably overlook a little bit, considering that, obviously all the stuff in the media is talking about, cow farts, which isn't even correct. But then, they go off of that and that's all they're focused on. They're not really focused on the manure aspect of it.
But again, animal is the major producer of methane compared to methane production from manure. So reducing methane production from animal is more important compared to the effort to reduce methane production from manure.
And then you do a lot of your studies, at least the ones that I've been involved with out at the farm, have involved the digestion stalls pretty heavily. So obviously you guys are looking at, specific weights and that sort of thing. But what other specifics are you looking at when you take those samples from those cows?
So what we are trying to do is to provide right amount of nutrient to animals. That is the key. We still don't understand how they utilize nutrient and produce milk. So what we are trying to do is we try to provide different. So if we provide different types of nutrient, for example, fiber and protein or starch, depending on their level, sometimes the results are not the same. There is associative effect between those nutrients. If we provide more of the one of them, that negatively or positively affect the utilization of other nutrients. So that's what we are trying to find out. Our goal is to understand their associative effect or the relationship between animals and microbes in the rumen and their digestibility and utilization rate of individual nutrient that we provide. So after we understand that, we try to provide right amount of nutrient to animals so they maximize their production with that nutrient and minimize excretion of those nutrients so that we can reduce the environmental impact.
Very cool.
That's the goal.
Not tedious at all, I imagine. With all the different grains and everything. I know there's all sorts of different grain mixes and everything back there, so I'm sure it gets quite overwhelming at times. And then since you've talked about the manure a little bit, obviously that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily think of right off the bat. So how do you think producers can do a better job to make their manure more valuable?
Again, doing something with manure is not easy because they have limited technologies at the farm and space, and sometimes it costs money to do something with manure. What I can say is we can. So manure is not a waste. That's true. Manure is not a waste. Manure is a valuable fertilizer. We always use it for plant and crops to grow better. But if manure is not properly managed at farm, that can probably contaminate our environment. So, for example, the concern right now is water quality and probably air quality and some odors for the neighbors. That is probably a concern that we have in the United States. To do something with manure, we can do there are many things, but largely there are two things to do. Sorry. We can provide diet that determine the composition of manure. So, for example, if we provide more nitrogen to cows, the manure will be rich in nitrogen and phosphorus as well. So we have to think about what we are feeding to animals for animal production, animal health, but also we have to think about manure nutrient composition. So we have to provide good manure nutrient composition. If those are not balanced well, then, for example, nitrogen, phosphorus, if we have a lot of nitrogen and low phosphorus, or very low nitrogen and high phosphorus, then this is very difficult to apply this manure to the field because plant has their requirement of nitrogen and phosphorus. So you have to think about, many people don't think about this much, but now is probably the time to think about animal and manure together. Another thing that producers may think about is for the large animal farm is required to do these things that I'm going to talk about right now. But small farm and medium farms, they're not required, but recommended. What I'm trying to say is now it's time to look at more closely what my manure value is and how we can efficiently apply this manure to the field. To know that, we need to know what's in the manure and what is in the soil. So we have to do the soil test, lab test, and then manure test. Not often, just probably once a year. So we need to know this, what we have right now, and then try to calculate how much we provide manure for the efficient as a fertilizer with minimal environmental impact.
So I know a lot of people, especially if they do crops, they're pretty regularly doing soil samples. My dad does hay, so he pretty regularly does soil samples every year. But you said obviously take manure samples as well. That way you kind of know what you're getting. So how big of a sample do you think you would need to do manure-wise, like a couple of cows, or if you could just do one cow, how broad do you think you should go?
All farms has their manure storage, for example, lagoon or something like that. So they don't have to analyze the manure from their the storage. What they need to do is right before the application, probably a couple of days before, they have to just sample from the storage.
Okay.
There is a way to collect a representative sample. So you can just do it right before application because that is the nutrient that you are going to provide to the field. So that is the right time, and then analyze it and just take a look at the numbers.
Very good point. Well, you breezed right through that. That was all the questions that I had, and we're right at 13 minutes. So
okay.
that's pretty good.
Thank you very much.
Yep. See, I told you, nice and easy, right?
Thank you very much for having me.
That's just a small tidbit of what you can expect on November 14th at Dairy Day at the Secrest Arboretum Welcome Center and Krauss Dairy in Worcester, Ohio. Thanks for listening.